and focusing more on function is an important piece. So hiring on personality and character was a huge piece that I think that got us to where we are now from a cultural perspective. But I want to keep that, but also bring in that skill set and productions aspect. So we're kind of meeting the middle of all three, maybe put that on a triangle, right? So it's an interesting season, but I love it because it's really challenging me in my leadership aspect and how I, lead the guys and get them to spaces, and those next levels that we need to as a team, because without it, you're not going to be able to scale.
Yeah, for sure. I tell our teams, hey, if you want to join our family office, any of the businesses that we own, which are 9 different businesses in different industries, initially we may not pay you more than the other guy, but I said you will always cap out at the level of your leadership. Yep. Always. So if you're working for another A&D advisory company, construction company, insurance company, if that person is like, I just want to make good money as the owner and I'm just going to stop here, that's, as a team member, you're going to stop there. Like if they stop progressing, learning, doing personal development and professional development, you'll stop. And that's what I always tell them. I'm like, hey, my commitment is I will never stop.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we chat about how to buy, sell, or grow your business. I'm joined by an awesome guest that was recommended by a bunch of different folks here in Colorado Springs. Kyle, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and pronounce your last name. Is it Cockram or Cockram? I wanted to make sure I said it correctly.
Honestly, whatever you want, man. It's a tough one. Growing up in the sticks in Virginia, kind of a country twang to it, but Cockram is kind of how most people essentially say it. I mean, it's got all kinds of different ways of swinging it, so I'm happy with whatever. It's a hard one.
I love it, man. Cockram. So Kyle has built one of the largest remodeling companies in Colorado. And the folks that recommended him said he really focuses on preserving culture and client touch. So we're excited to dig into just really how to be in the construction / blue collar service space and do that well culturally with clients and integrity. But we always start with the story. So Kyle, back us up, man. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you got to where you are, a bit about the business and how you chose business ownership and entrepreneurship, or if it chose you, and talk about Southern Mesa, your business, and then we'll just go from there.
Yeah. So, to start it off, business chose me, entrepreneurship. But to back it up, man, I, kind of foreshadowing or looking back into my story, it was definitely being set up for me. I just didn't realize it. I was a big sports guy, grew up in the South, football, basketball is a big deal. So I was actually in baseball, was a big sport for me, and basketball. I always felt like, the leader of sorts, captain kind of guy. So leadership alone was a space that I fell into and didn't really realize it.
What
But
were
yeah,
your parents like, Kyle? Was that something that was in the home that was specifically called out? Hey, be a leader, that sort of thing. Or was it more just kind of caught, not taught?
yeah. Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both, probably more caught than taught. I mean, my dad was a business owner. I had a pretty successful small remodeling company in the small town I grew up in. But yeah, it was kind of a caught space, I think, in a lot of ways, because it really didn't come to me till I was on my own and kind of finding my own path and my own story. And just writing that path, kind of doing me instead of doing what I thought other people wanted me to do. So that season of life, really just doing things for myself is what really kind of painted the picture for where things are landing right now and aligned me of sorts with my purpose and what I feel like I was born to do, calling, whatever you want to use, whatever word there you want to use. So yeah, and, it's funny because growing up, I kind of got from many different angles the phrase of don't start your own business. Don't go into business. Always work for somebody, maybe go commercial or go corporate, or maybe even avoid construction altogether, right?
Interesting.
Because there's a lot of, there's a lot of bad rapport and negative connotations to the industry, and we can dive into that, and I think we will, obviously, here in this conversation. But yeah, just a lot of unfortunate, stories and just bad experiences from people in my life that were like, hey, maybe construction's not the right way to go. Kind of like people pushing college instead of the trades, and now you see
Was
trades kind of
that
taking
was
a
that from
front.
your
So
parents? Because that's really interesting. Like, I
it
think
is.
on from an entrepreneurial perspective, a lot of business owners are tell their kids, "Don't ever do this. High
Yeah.
stress, high risk." And then some of the other business owners are like, "No, you should absolutely
Hmm.
be a business owner because of the freedom it will provide you if you work hard enough. You don't need to go to college necessarily. You shouldn't be a W-2." Like,
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about how that was communicated from the people of influence. And then also, because I know you've got some kids and we do as well, how would you communicate that to your kids as they grow up?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and I think some of it did definitely came from my parents, maybe my dad specifically, because he had his own business and obviously dealt with the struggles. Finding the right people to work with you, the ups and downs of, finding business and sales and all the stuff. It has its challenges, right? And it's only, made for certain people that are willing to weather, the storms. So, ups and downs from him definitely played a role, but I think a lot of it was the location. It's a small town. And so living in a small town has a lot of different challenges than living in a place like I do here in Colorado Springs. So I think that played a role, but definitely talking to other people. I mean, I grew up in construction. I was swinging a hammer probably at age 3, and both grandfathers were in the construction industry. Like I said, my dad was as well. So I grew up around it, got to talk to a lot of people as I was growing up. I was in the trades classes in high school. Teachers
Did you
there
guys
even
have
saying, hey,
building
don't go into
trades?
construction. So yeah, one of the
Yeah,
few
we
that
did
was
too.
left at the time, right? So,
Yeah, I love it.
but
All I did, we built the garage, and really they weren't watching us appropriately because we were roofing, and I was like shooting roofing
mm,
nails at people down below, my buddies that were on the football team. In
yeah.
retrospect, I was like, man, I could have really like blinded somebody, and I'm not sure whose garage that is, but it probably wasn't that great at construction.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I remember building quite a few things in that class, and, we're young kids trying to learn and figure it out, but definitely not something I'd put my name on today. But yeah, it's cool to see, and we can dive into that later because I don't want to get too off topic. But for me, like I really I want to invest more time even into careers in construction here in
Mhm.
Colorado, because what they're doing to try to bring trades back to the schools and make trades, a more sought after space is something I want to be a huge part of, because I was impacted heavily by having trades classes in high school, because I was not necessarily your, school kid. I mean,
Mhm.
I never was a troublemaker, but give me a book and I'm going to run from it. So
Yeah.
trades kept me in school, and probably even kept me in my sports that I was playing, right? So, and it's heavily needed. I mean, the amount of people that are retiring from the trades and the amount of people that are coming into the trades is a significant gap there. So we need more people in that space, and I want to be a part of helping in that, because that's only going to make the construction industry more challenging, because if
Hmm.
there's, supply and demand, right? Pretty
Yep.
straightforward. So if there's a high demand and a low supply, it's going to get very expensive. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much construction affects the overall economy of our country.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the businesses we own in is an oil and gas upstream company. And it's the
Okay.
same way. Like,
Yeah.
so oil and gas is the basis for every single thing that's produced in the world. And there's a period of time where it was so demonized that people weren't like engineers were like, I'm not going to get petroleum engineering. I'm going to go
Hmm.
chemical or mechanical. And I think it was the same way in the trades where everybody said, hey, you should be getting a tech job or a finance job or whatever. And we're in the same boat. We really think that there's great money to be made. There's a ton of respect in that space. And just having a skill
Mm.
set is going to be more and more highly valued. And even when
Yeah.
people ask me, what are you thinking for your kids for college? I'm like, frankly, the value proposition wasn't there when I'm in college. Now it definitely isn't there.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's going
Yeah.
to be, hey, we're going to do a YouTube university and teach you how to manage AI and technology and people and problem solve, and that's kind of what we're going to do, or that sort of thing. But things are shifting dramatically. So I
Yeah.
love that focus on, and that's one of our biggest
Yeah.
focuses with our advisory company is trying to help equip people to buy businesses and run businesses, because I think instead of taking out 200 grand of debt, if you could actually, start in business, if you have the right skill set and desire to do it,
Hmm.
there's going to be so
Hmm.
much opportunity as baby boomers transition. So
Totally.
let's fast forward. So you've got all
Yeah.
this noise, right? You've got different people telling you different things, and you had to figure out what Kyle was going to do. What helped you
Yeah.
refine that view and say, hey, I'm going to get into the space, and not only get in the space, but you're really respected in the space? So walk us
Hmm.
through some of that, the conviction to get into it. And then also not to just say, I'm going to make good money and do it for myself, but I want to build something that I'm proud of, that,
Hmm.
supports and loves other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. So, yeah, it was a journey for me. Like I said earlier, I grew up in Virginia. I did some community college time there just to try and figure out my path and kind of what I feel like I should be doing in life professionally, and really struggled there. I ended up working full time for a construction company there, and just kind of, honed in my skill sets in that trade. And yeah, I ended up hitting a season of life where it actually pulled me out of Virginia. I landed in Louisiana, and I did exactly what people around me were saying, like, don't go into construction. And I think it got stuck in my mind. So I actually went into the automotive space, in the electrical automotive space specifically, and did it for 4 years. And actually ended up working with one of the best bosses I could ever ask for. His name is John, super great guy. Became a great friends with him, massive impact on my life and my wife as well. And it kind of, without me knowing it, gave me an idea of what it takes to not run a business, but to care for people in the entrepreneurial space, to be an owner, but still care for people, kind of like that people over profit mindset or
Mm-hmm.
mentality. And it didn't really sit with me until many years later. Ended up meeting my wife in that time frame. We got married, moved to Colorado. This was 2016, 2017 range, and landed a job here in the Springs with a outdoor living space general contractor. And working with him is where I actually learned the business aspect, profits, margins, just structures and processes and all the things that it takes to actually build, $1 million plus type of construction company. And I ended up working my way up with him. I was as an operations manager with him before I left. And what kind of transpired in those 4 or 5 years I was there was me trying to, still kind of refine what my why is.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring that the why into Southern Mesa pretty heavily, because when I really started focusing on that, what my why is, what my purpose is, it really started shedding some light. And what I learned is, you probably heard the phrase, the purpose is always in the pain. But what always struggled with me is I grew up with a pretty good lifestyle. My parents were great. They were awesome parents for me. I had a pretty decent childhood, not like a super privileged one, growing up in a small town in Virginia, but good friends, great parents, great grandparents, just a lot of good stuff in my life. So I didn't have necessarily have a ton of pain in my story.
Mm-hmm.
And the ironic part with that is that I kind of like internally broke down in that, because I'm like, well, shouldn't I have some pain? Why is everybody else experiencing different, pains and struggles in life and I'm not? And I had, little bits of challenges obviously in life here and there, but nothing crazy. But what I realized is that a part of my why is that I feel like I was born to help people find their worth and know that
Love
they're
it.
worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, I don't know, just kind of opened a million doors for me. And I was trying to like piece it all together, because, everybody's telling me don't go into business, don't do your own thing. Entrepreneurship is too hard. It's not worth it, whatever it is. Right. And I'm telling my wife this, and we've, kind of had built this life and all these things. And one day I go up to Raylan and I'm like, I think I'm supposed to start a business. And she looks at me like I'm crazy. She's like, what? You spent years saying this would never be your space. And so I was like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm really called to do this. Like, I feel like this is what we're supposed to do. And, being the great wife that Raylan is, she was like, okay, I'm here for you. Let's do it. And so we pulled the trigger and started building, what we want Southern Mesa to look like. And at the time, we didn't even have the name. And a lot of it was centered around culture.
Hmm.
And, because that's what I saw to be the biggest gap in the construction industry is
Yep.
culture. And so I was like, okay, let's center it around that and see where it goes. And young and not really knowledgeable in the space, never been surrounded around entrepreneurs and business owners a ton, so I didn't really know what I was doing. But it kind of just it lit a fire under me, and I was just like, okay, let's go, let's just figure it out. Let's like lean into the faith and just know that it's gonna play itself out the way it should. And so I
Let's pause there because there's some really good
yeah.
stuff there. So the mission, the why, the purpose is something that we talk about every week. In fact, I gave
Hmm.
a talk at the real estate investors group here in Springs. And the question, so they said, hey, we want to bring you in as an advisor and speaker. The question is, should we buy real estate or buy businesses to acquire real estate? Should we, like, what are the tracks to build wealth? And everybody was a better presenter than me. They had very polished slides, and I had like 4 or 5 really
Okay.
crummy slides, and and like none of the font matched. And I realized it when I got there. But the point of it was, I said, "Hey, I think, bear with me. I may want to take this a different way, which is until you know your why, I don't think you can answer
Mm,
this question." Until
yeah.
you understand your life's purpose, your family's purpose, and where you're going, it's hard to understand if buying a business, running a business, buying real estate, running real estate wraps into that purpose. And so
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we go into like business acquisitions, very hot right now, and I think it works really well for some folks and not for other folks, but everybody's being coached to say this is the only way to do it and you should do it this way, which I fundamentally am opposed to. And I think
Sure.
it goes back to that purpose. If you're pursuing business acquisition or ownership for just money, like pretty quickly you're going to
Hmm.
be like, this is not worth it. Like it's just not
Totally.
going to carry you through the times when somebody quits on you and you get sued and all the things. But when you go into it with a purpose outside of yourself, and ours is similar to yours, our mission is activate and equip others to live exceptional lives.
Mm,
And so that exceptional life, going back to the worthiness, I believe God's created us all with great worth and we're all to be creators. And so I want people to be thinking as you're creating that life, what does that look like for you? Like, what is the
yeah.
most beautiful life for you? Not my life,
Mm,
not what I want, not what your pastor, your wife, or anybody wants, but like like what has
hmm.
God created you to live? And so I love that, man. And when you can
Yeah.
help other people uncover that purpose, and it's not an easy process, right? I'm sure it took you
Right.
years. And for
Yes.
me, I'm still refining it, is trying to
Yep.
figure out what does that look
Yep.
like in the future. But
Hmm.
it gives you that sturdy foundation to say, okay, we know we're supposed to do this thing. Now, when times are really hard, because they will be, then you're in a better position. So, how is that manifested with your employees, maybe partners, et cetera, as you came into a space that is not really culture focused? I mean, there are some really great culture companies in the construction space,
Hmm.
but a lot of them are not. How has that changed maybe how you look as a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I tell you, when I started, it was scary. It
Mm,
really was scary because I had this just knowledge and truth that, if you really think about it too, I'm looking at like when I retire, I'm not going to remember, the cabinets that we installed at this job or the quality of the paint job or, whatever it is. I'm going to remember the people. I'm going to remember the clients. I'm going to remember the team members on staff. And so it was hard because a lot of that's not like, clear, defined. Like you can't take numbers and break all that down and do a profit and loss statement. So, it's just kind of it was a weird space, but God provided, man. It was like the people that kept falling into my lap, the team members that are still on staff today, so bought into what the vision was and the mission of Southern Mesa, and just really latched on to the knowledge of, hey, here's an owner who truly does care about us and
mhm,
truly wants to see impact in our personal lives. And each day in the first 6 months to a year, man, it was a wild journey because, I'm rabbit trailing a little bit here, but I intended to be like in 3 to 5 years, I would go from me and a guy or me and two guys, up to maybe four or five. And I think we finished our first year with 11 team members, and not a single one of them I sought out. They ended up falling in my lap through connections, networking, mutual friends, things like that. And so it was looking back, like, you're the first year of business and the first couple of years, it's just you put your head down and grind, you know, so you don't really process everything that's happening. But reflecting back, it's fascinating to see the team members that stepped into the space and took a risk on me and a brand new business and say, hey, okay, I'm going to jump on this ship with you and we're going to ride it until we find, endless success or whatever it is that we're looking for. And so just grateful for that, what was provided for me, and super blessed and just honored to be, leading a group of guys that's now 20, 24, 26, something like that now. So it's crazy. But yeah, rabbit trailing off here. Zone me back in on the question.
No, you're good. You're good. So, how does Southern Mesa look different? You talked about culture, you talked about
Mhm.
value. So, I think that's a big phrase that we talk
Yeah.
about in our businesses is, hey, we're selling value, not price. And you mentioned that as well. That's something that
Hmm.
we're always looking at. If
Yeah.
we've sold on price, we haven't done our job
Yeah.
because we haven't created enough value within that, whatever that product
Hmm.
is, for somebody to say, I actually don't care as much about the price because the value is so high. So tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about how you do that.
Yeah. So I actually had a phone consultation today with a client, and I was kind of just explaining to her that my personal feeling is that the majority of contractors truly do care to serve their clientele. They do have a big heart and they want what's best. They just seem to not know how to manage their schedule, manage their calendar, manage their time, delegate leadership, all those other spaces that white collar, I guess, in some aspects tends to do a little bit better at. And so that's why I really focus a lot of things on value. Core values is something you always hear when you're talking with entrepreneurs, how important that is. And we have those core values, but also selling to clients on those values and aligning on those values, I think is crucial. And that allows you to really partner with clientele that see your vision and mission
Mhm.
and align with that to where when you're doing the project with them, it's a million times easier. And I quickly realized the difference there because working with various contractors over the years, we would just sell to land the job, right? There's commission structures and everything. So there's salesmen just kind of landing the jobs to get paychecks. And it's just, they're not aligning. And so clientele see things completely differently than you do. And so when you find those clientele that align, it just opens the doors for things to just flow so much easier. And the projects just, complete in a lot better fashion than you typically hear. You don't have those issues of horror stories. It's just, if you have high values on communication and we're providing that high level of communication, we can communicate through all the challenges. It's construction. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have, you're going to demo and find things in the walls that are unknown, or you're going to have to pivot in a million different directions. So when you align on values, the conversations just flow easier, right? Like
Yeah,
if you
for
think
sure.
about the group, small groups or your friends, like it's a lot easier to have conversations because you align on the values more than likely. And so why can't we do that with clientele? So what we're trying to do is make sure clients understand what our values are and that we're actually trying to put things in place to help them out at a high level, at a high service that, holds to what the standard should be in our industry. And
Hmm.
so that obviously then carries into our team because we have a set of core values that we try to hold by. And if our team is not holding to those standards, then we have a gap, and so we have to, have a culture and some leadership tactics to make sure that's happening internally as well.
Hmm.
To where, if a salesman is given this great pitch of who Southern Mesa is, but then the crew comes in on the job when we're starting it and doesn't follow through with that, that trust quickly declines with the clientele. And what I have learned is from a sales perspective, yes, you have to earn that trust to get that job, right?
For sure.
But it's a lot uh, I guess what I want to picture here is that, the crew, foremans, crew leads, superintendents, whatever you want to call them, they're on the job site every day. It is a lot more crucial to build that trust with the clientele in that position because they're there every single day. Sometimes clientele are going to work leaving you in your house, you know? So if they
Yep.
don't trust those guys leading the job site, that's a huge deal. So
Yeah,
I really
I always
push
say
that.
like culture, like you cannot have a good culture without good processes.
Totally.
Because
Absolutely.
you can say like we use a system called EOS, and so you can build out your culture and say, hey, our core values are this, our mission statement is this, our unique abilities are
Hmm.
this, whatever the things are. And then people go to work and they forget about it. And so if you don't have a process that says we
Hmm.
are actually accountable, if we say honesty, we're accountable for being dishonest. If we're quoting something that we know is not correct and we don't have processes to catch that, then that's a problem. You know, so
Hmm.
each of your core values
Hmm.
should actually have some sort of scorecard around it to say, are we measuring that or are we not? And we've got like there's some pretty incredible research in the impact scorecard space. So people of faith or not faith that are just like, hey, I want to have. So in our oil company, one of our values is humans flourishing, right? So we want
Hmm.
not only the people utilizing our products to be flourishing, but also our investors, our team members, everybody on our team, and our community. And so as we were
Hmm.
talking about this, I was like, okay, well, that's the outcome of a scorecard. So what does our impact scorecard look like? And then we built a scorecard around that. And some of it was, you know, even like for our team, for example, for our team to flourish, they need to have spiritual flourishing, physical, and emotional. And so I'm like, okay, how do we impact positively those three areas? And our team really is driving this, not me. I get to
Hmm.
kind of sit above and just and think about it. And so one of the things was we created a online digital fitness coach program that we partnered with that they could, you know, kind of be a part of and track blood work and different things and offered that to our team and said, okay, for your physical pillar, we want you to flourish. Okay, here's some ways that we can as a company have actions to lead to the outcome.
Do you like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now and check out our website, www.excoadvisors.com. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
So tell us a little bit how you've done that, because I can tell you have done it, thinking about the outcome in the field that you want and saying, okay,
Hmm.
we have to actually teach our people and measure these things consistently where they know, hey, not only do we say that we're this culture, but we actually embody this culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, what I've learned is like systems and team building become the bottleneck, especially as you scale. You know, early on, I feel like speed and execution matter more than perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, systems and team building is such a crucial aspect that I feel like, especially in the construction industry, is heavily missed. I'm a huge structure and process guy. So, you know, and to be transparent, in a season right now that we're in on where how much we're trying to scale, it's a hard season for me because I'm such a big systems and process guy. But you know, you've heard the phrase, what got you here won't get you there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of in that in between of that. We're making a lot of shifts in business at such a young age to get us to that next level. And so there's a lot of struggle for me because I'm a big systems and structures guy, and we're having to make a lot of pivots to reach that next level, and especially in
Mm-hmm.
a season right now with tariffs and economic challenges and all the stuff that's going on. It's just creating a lot of strain in my leadership tactics and how I approach and things like that because it's important, like you just said. And for me, it's without structures and processes, you're not going to be able to scale the way that you want to. And we've gone from this early on of this very family oriented type of culture, which I think is absolutely crucial in construction, especially. You know, for me, I hired on personality and chemistry and character and not necessarily skill set and like production aspects of things. But we have reached this point where it's now a shift towards more of a team perspective to where it's more like function focused and not feelings. You know, I don't have a brother, right? I'm an only child, but you know, if my brother screws up and messes up a job site, do I just like say, okay, don't do it again and we move on, or do I hold them accountable? You know, that kind of thing. So that team focus, but you know, bringing in that sports aspect that's really
Yeah,
big for
for sure.
me is, you know, and focusing more on function is an important piece. So hiring on personality and character was a huge piece that I think that got us to where we are now from a cultural perspective. But I want to keep that, but also bring in that skill set and production aspect. So we're kind of meeting in the middle of all three, maybe put that on a triangle, right? So it's an interesting season, but I love it because it's really challenging me in my leadership aspect and how I, lead the guys and get them to spaces, in those next levels that we need to as a team, because without it, you're not going to be able to scale.
Yeah, for sure. I tell our teams, hey, if you want to join our family office, any of the businesses that we own, which are 9 different businesses in different industries, initially we may not pay you more than the other guy, but I said
Hmm. Yeah.
you will always cap out at the level of your leadership.
Yep.
Always. So if you're
Love
working
that.
for another A&D advisory company, construction company, insurance company, fine. If that person is like, I just want to make good money as the owner and I'm just going to stop here, that's, as a team member, you're going to stop there. Like if they
Hmm.
stop progressing, learning, doing personal development and professional development, you'll stop. And that's what I always tell them. I'm like, hey, my commitment is I will never stop.
Mm.
And so I'm going to
Yeah.
continue to grow. And that means that you'll always have a path to continue to grow if you stay on my team. And that's where I think we beat other
Mm.
folks recruiting, is
Yeah.
because we're casting this big vision that other people's visions that are still big are fitting within that vision. But as soon as you stop, we atrophy, right? It's just like muscles. And so as soon as you
Mm.
stop developing and growing, then everybody on your team is like, well, now
Yep.
I can't grow because Kyle is making $1 million a year and he is just
Yeah.
vacationing and he doesn't really want to grow the thing anymore. And they're like, well, where do I go from here? So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I
Love
love that,
it.
man. So
Yeah.
let's transition a bit. So
Okay.
what was some bad advice you heard along your journey, or maybe some bad themes that you're hearing in social media or from younger people that you'd just like to kind of use this as a platform to say, hey, I think this is wrong and I think that maybe we should take a different approach to it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to go back to a little bit about what I was speaking earlier is, there's so many entrepreneurship, you can probably hit on this as well. It's a lonely space, right?
Mm,
There's not a ton of people that do it. And then there's the amount of the people that don't understand. You can't relate without experiencing it. So, well, like I was saying earlier, so many people saying, hey, don't go into business, especially don't do it in construction, whatever it is. I would say that's almost like literally the complete opposite, especially in 2025. I'm getting reports and reading articles around entry level plumbing positions at 100K right
mm,
out of high school, So there's massive opportunity in that space that, people should definitely keep on the list of opportunity and options for them as you're graduating high school, graduating college, whatever it is. I mean, imagine starting at 100K fresh out of high school versus going into 100 to 200K in debt, and with college, right?
yeah,
And
for
the
sure.
amount of people that go to college and don't use their degrees is rising from what I've
Hmm.
read. So that would be the biggest one, man. It's fascinating the amount of people that try to steer you away from entrepreneurship. And I get it. It's hard. It is
Hmm.
literally the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. But, it's for me, I don't want to chase mediocrity. I want to chase greatness. I want to chase more than just the average per se. I want to
I
be
love that.
impactful, and I have a good friend of mine and a coach as well. His name is Alan Briggs. You may have heard of him here in the
Oh yeah.
Springs.
Yeah, I know.
Solid dude, love the guy. He calls it H2 leadership. It's high impact and high health. So it's not
Mm,
just leading a group of people, but you're trying to do it with high impact in your life and in the people around you, and
for
doing
sure.
it at high health. So you're taking care of your body from a mental, physical, spiritual space. And that's a very rare thing in the
Hmm.
entrepreneur world because it takes a massive toll on you. And so, yeah, I don't have much more. I mean, there's plenty more, I'm sure, but that's a huge one, man, because construction is a space that has massive opportunity. And I think it's only going to get greater as the next few years go on.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, man. And I think if you can start young people down the path of minimal debt, and hey, if you're making 100 grand, live off of 45 or 50, or, it all depends on
Hmm.
where you live, but live way underneath. I mean, my wife and I moved to Midland, Texas to start in oil and gas, and we had no debt. We had a business degree from CSU. And we're like, there's
Mm.
just not enough going on here in Fort Collins. Like, let's move to the most busiest place where we can go create
Yeah.
value. But
Yeah.
even there, like even as W-2s, when we started as W-2s, we lived on less than half. And then we started buying real
Mm-hmm.
estate and we started buying businesses and we got more skills and we got more skills. And that, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't come from some crazy pedigree. We just said, hey, we're going to do so instead of going on hunting trips and vacations and buying a bigger house like all our friends were doing. We're like, what if we just started reinvesting this? And so if we can get kids out of high school and if they don't have a plan that requires college, don't go to college, right? Go
Mm-hmm.
like have a path to become a master plumber where you can make 200 grand eventually or HVAC
Yeah.
or whatever. I
Yep.
mean, honestly, like spray
Mm-hmm.
foam insulators make a pile of money. There's so
Mm-hmm.
many ways. Like our A&D advisory company, the one thing that I love about it is when we take a company to market or even evaluate it, you can look at a business and be like, how is this person making 5 million gross revenue in this niche that no one has ever heard of,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're selling a
Mm-hmm.
nut, they're selling a
Isn't that
widget,
wild?
and you're just like, this is incredible.
Yep.
So I love that. If young folks can go right into making good money and then just find a program like Dave Ramsey or something, it doesn't have to be his, but something that's just like helps you understand personal finance and investing. If you just did that for 10 years, your life would be totally like different. I mean, I believe
Yep.
everybody in the US
Yep.
that doesn't have
Uh-huh.
some crazy thing can be a multi-millionaire. I mean, this country
Yep.
has just massive opportunities.
Totally
Um,
agree, man.
I
Society
love that.
makes it way more complicated than it needs to be. It's
100%. I always
yeah,
tell people that business is actually super, super simple. Business is
it
simple. It's
is.
been the same for 1,000
It
years. It's
is.
just really
Yeah.
hard. It's so
Yeah.
hard, but it's
Yeah. I
simple.
mean, the
You just have
problems
to.
never go away,
Mhm.
like they just get bigger and more complex, and you need to, be more equipped to solve them, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. So if you could give some advice outside of that, so let's say it's a young entrepreneur that's like, hey, I'm
Mm,
thinking about buying a business, thinking about building a
yeah.
business. It's 2025. Like, how would you coach that person? Because you probably get that question quite a bit in your circle because you're one of the
Sure.
mentors now that people are looking to.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I would say that the pain and uncertainty that you're going to endure, especially in the first 1 to 3, 3 to 5 years, aren't signs to stop.
Mhm.
They're signs that you're on the right track, is the way I see it. And honestly, that was a revelation that came to me recently. But to me, what I see is the key is learning to endure and solve bigger problems, kind of like I just mentioned a second ago.
Mhm.
I feel like, I've been in a part of this group in the construction space that uses the phrase mediocrity dies today. And I love that because our society really just tries to get us stuck in that place of complacency.
Yep.
And that phrase to me just hits home for me because I don't want to be mediocre. And what's hard about that is if, you're, pressed up against challenges and problems, and you don't have a good group of people around you to talk you
Mhm.
through it, even a coach even, you're going to be more apt to back out, right?
Mhm.
And I was with Alan a couple weeks ago, and he was painting this image of, we're just walking around this circle, this path. There's maybe a lake or a pond in the middle. Perfect weather. There's no bugs. Whatever it is that's you don't like, right? And it's just perfect. And just everybody's on the circle, and you just keep going around and around and around and around. And like for me, like when I really saw my why, it was when I was on that circle and I just stepped into what he called the wilderness.
Mhm.
And that's what I think entrepreneurship is. It's the wilderness because you're stepping into a place where there's not really a direct path.
For sure.
You're forging your own path, and there's multiple different paths and multiple different directions that you can take it, and it's up to you to decide how you want to do it. And when you're like I said, when you're up against these challenges, they become greater and greater as you scale and as you grow. And if you don't have the right people around you, it's hard to really push through them and push
Mhm.
forward. A lot of people tend to back out and give up. And that's why you hear about entrepreneurs, closing up shop, giving up their business, going back and working for some corporate company or whatever it is. And, if they might have been right there, right at the brink of a breakthrough or
Yep.
hitting that next level where maybe some peace comes into their life as the owner or the entrepreneur that they didn't realize was just right there. So that complacency draw, I think, is very heavy and very strong in our society, especially in America, because we're in a privileged country, and
Yep.
so it's just hard to really see that clearly. And I think another piece that I would close on that is what I've found the biggest impact for me is to put myself in places to find clarity. because what so a level of success, any level of success is going to continue to yield options, right? Once
Hmm.
you reach each level, you have more options, and a lot of times what I've found is that leads to honestly more disorientation.
Hmm.
And what that can do is kind of just, create your mind to go in just random spaces, and you're not going to really have clarity on what direction maybe is best for you or what you're called to do. So clarity is a huge one. Always put yourself in spaces where you're seeking that clarity, where you're
Hmm.
finding that clarity. Have a group of people, one, two, three. It doesn't have to be 20 people that are really good at being in that space with you and helping you seek that clarity. And that's where I think, especially coaching, especially in a leadership space, when you have a larger team, is crucial, because that coach can come in from a different perspective and really challenge you. And most of the time, you already have the answers. It's just that person coming in and helping bring it out for you. So
Love
clarity
that.
is huge, and don't give up. Just don't give up when those pains and struggles present themselves. It's a sign that you're nearing that breakthrough, not that you need to give up.
Yeah, that is so good, man. And especially in the faith community, I've
Mm,
heard from so many people that are just like, well, I feel like God's telling me to do this, or I feel like God's
yeah.
telling me to do that, and I'm just like, man, I think if God tells you, you're gonna know, man. Like in the Bible, when he
Hmm.
told somebody, like they knew
Love
it
that.
was a burning bush. It was a big
Love that.
moment. It wasn't just now it can be in the quiet, like it can be in the quiet, but I haven't found that in my life. I've found usually that's an excuse for me to give up, like you said. Ah,
Yeah.
man, maybe this
Yeah.
business isn't right. Maybe we got to wrap it up and sell it. And it seems like this
Hmm.
business should be a better fit. And even in
Yeah.
marriage, right? You have people all the time. Hey, I just feel like I should give up on my marriage and this, that. And I'm always like, hey, I think you
Yeah.
should just give it
That's
more
good.
time. Like give it some more
That's good.
time and take some time
Hmm.
to think through it and fix it. I think business, if you stay in it long enough, you'll have success. If you'll just keep practicing, you will have
Mm.
success. But exactly what you
Truth.
said, I see so many people that get literally to the top and they're like, it's too hard, and they give up. And I'm like, shoot, if you would have given it 9 more months,
Hmm.
you would have had
Yep.
that thing that you were pursuing. I love that, man. So tell
Yep.
me, I want to have you share a final bit of wisdom if there's anything you want to leave our audience with. But where can
Mm.
people find you to if someone listens to this podcast and really just resonates, either wants to join your team or just kind of get connected with you, what's a good spot that they could find you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, one space that I need to work on more is my social media presence. I know the value there and the importance there, but I kind of have some old school mentalities there that I'm wrestling with. I am on social media. We definitely have a Southern Mesa social media page. I have a great team member. Her name is Anna that leads that. So we're on Instagram, Facebook. I think she's got a TikTok going, of course, YouTube. I'm on LinkedIn, things like that. Our website is a massively valuable resource. We really focus on the educational aspect of construction and making sure we're equipping clientele, especially in the Colorado Springs community, with the knowledge that they need to make the right decisions as far as how to search for the right contractor, what questions to ask, all those types of things are in there. So there's places you can apply for employment. There's forms you can fill out just to talk with me or another team member in regards to really whatever. I mean, it's centered around a potential job, but happy to have a conversation, whether it's even about leadership or entrepreneurship. I'm always open to a conversation because, again, my main focus is to help people where I can and how I can from a worthy perspective, because everyone in this country and in this world is worthy of something greater than we probably realize. So
All right. Let's close
yeah.
with that then, Cal. So if somebody
Yeah, man.
is out there and they're like, man, I just don't feel worthy. I come from a family that's got bad habits and we're not
Mm,
successful and the business is not working or my job is not working. And I know that politically things are falling apart in our country. And this is not what I
yep.
believe, but
Yep.
they're in that
Same.
negative headspace and just feeling like I'm just not worth pursuing the dream that I think maybe I should have. What
Mm.
would you tell them?
Yeah. I mean, for starters, it goes back to that phrase, purpose is always in the pain. What I have come to learn is that, for me, I feel like God's always trying to show you your purpose, even while you're in the pain.
Mm.
And it typically, because of society and the people around us, it gets kind of shadowed and kind of covered up. And it takes us years to really find that purpose from the pain that we maybe experienced, years prior or what have you. Everybody's journey is different. The length of time on finding your purpose can vary, of course, right? But everybody, in my belief, and I believe it through and through, that everybody is worthy more than what we can even imagine.
Mm.
And it's really, to me, it's just about putting yourself around the right community to help you see it.
I love it.
um, Community for us, for me, my wife, when we started Southern Mesa, I kind of hit on that a little bit. Community was going to be at the core for us, and it still is today. Volunteering efforts are something that we do very, very heavily, and we focus in on a lot. We rotate through the team on doing various volunteer efforts, and so we're intentionally trying to create a community here at Southern Mesa to where when people come in, that community organically helps them find more of who they are and their worth. And so I think it really lands on the right people that you're surrounded by and that community that you put yourself around, because that's going to be where you really find more of your identity.
Love it, man. Kyle, thanks
Yeah.
so much for coming on the show, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. Yeah, we barely scratched the surface, so let's do it.
I agree. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com, for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street, or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.